If you think about it, from old folklore to, the most dramatic modern soap operas, there's always that one character.
Oh, yeah.
The one who's just completely consumed by this one emotion, that slow burn of suspicion, the possessiveness. It just drives everything they do.
Right.
We call it the green-eyed monster. But why does that feeling, jealousy, feel so primal, so fundamental?
Because it really is. Jealousy isn't just a bad mood. It's an incredibly powerful and really complex survival system that's been wired into
Your
us.
survival system.
Yeah. At its absolute core, jealousy is driven by this deep fear of losing a valuable relationship because of some kind of threat from a third party, real or imagined.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive Lab. Today we're unpacking the evolutionary wiring, the brain chemistry, and the modern psychology of jealousy. And as we found in the sources, this monster is way more complicated and honestly more adaptive than you might think.
So to get started, we really have to define what we're talking about, scientifically. When we look at jealousy, we see three different parts. There's the cognitive part, that's the obsessive thoughts, the what-if scenarios that run on a loop in your head.
Rumination.
Exactly. Then you've got the emotional part. That's the messy mix of anger, fear, betrayal, anxiety, all of it. And finally, there's the behavioral dimension.
What you actually do.
Right. The monitoring, the checking their phone, trying to restrict who they see. That's the system in action.
And it's so important to draw a line between jealousy and envy. I think we all use them interchangeably, but psychologically they're completely different beasts.
Completely. And it's a critical distinction. Jealousy is a defensive mechanism. It's all about protecting something you already have.
Protecting your relationship.
Exactly. Envy, on the other hand, it's acquisitive. It's about wanting something that someone else has. So jealousy is the panic you feel when you think someone's trying to take your house. Envy is just wishing you had your neighbor's bigger house.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so let's get into the evolutionary blueprint. Where does this intense protective instinct even come from?
So for that, we have to go back to 1972 to Robert Triver's parental investment theory. It's really the foundational idea here.
Okay.
And it basically suggests that whichever sex makes the biggest biological investment in offspring is going to have higher stakes in keeping the relationship secure. And for humans, that's women.
Right, because of gestation, childbirth, the biological cost is just fundamentally higher.
It is. And that asymmetry is what leads to the classic differences we see in jealousy studies. It's a really well-established finding.
So let's break that down.
Well, the classic finding is that men traditionally get far more distressed by sexual infidelity, and the evolutionary logic is paternity uncertainty,
The risk of raising a child that isn't genetically yours.
which in evolutionary terms is a catastrophic waste of resources, whereas women traditionally experience more distress over emotional infidelity.
Because that signals a potential loss of resources, commitment, the partner just leaving.
Exactly, a threat to the entire family unit.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting for me, if this is all hardwired biology, how do we explain the fact that in many cultures around the world, that difference just disappears?
This is maybe the most important insight from the sources we looked at. There's a huge study in evolution and human behavior that looked at 11 different populations.
And not just the usual Western university student.
Not at all. They made a point to include non-weird societies like Himba pastoralists and the Simoname people, over 1,000 individuals. And what they found completely changes the story, that classic sex difference. It's not a universal rule.
So it's not rigid, it's flexible.
Precisely. It's what we call a facultative response. The jealousy mechanism adapts to the local environment, to the social and cultural conditions.
And what was the biggest predictor they found?
Paternal involvement. In cultures where fathers invest a lot of time and resources in their kids, the fear shifts.
It shifts for everyone.
For everyone. The more the father invests, the more both men and women worry about sexual infidelity. In fact, in 7 of the 11 populations they studied, both sexes rated sexual infidelity as more upsetting.
Wow. So our ancient brain is basically running a local cost-benefit analysis. It's less about some fixed biology and more about protecting the resources, whatever they look like in your specific culture.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the whole point of feeling that jealousy is to motivate you to do something about it, to retain your mate.
Which brings us to mate retention behaviors.
Right. A study of over 700 Croatian women broke these down into 2 main types. The first are what you'd expect. The negative ones.
The toxic stuff.
Exactly. Cost-inflicting strategies,
Yeah.
surveillance, trying to control their social life, putting down rivals.
High-risk strategies that can easily backfire.
Very easily. But the second category is what's really interesting. Benefit provisioning strategies.
And so the positive side.
The positive side. Increasing affection, spending more quality time, providing more resources, being more emotionally present. And the sources are clear. This approach leads to much higher relationship satisfaction. It shows jealousy doesn't have to be destructive. It can be a wake-up call to, put in the work.
Okay, so that's the why and the what. Let's get into the engine room. What is actually happening in our brains chemically when that monster starts to wake up?
The neuroimaging is just fascinating. It actually confirms that evolutionary split we were just talking about.
How so?
When people in a scanner are made to feel sexual jealousy, one specific area lights up, the right amygdala.
The brain's primal fear and threat detector.
Right. But when they feel emotional jealousy, the activity shifts. It engages the left and right cingulate cortex instead.
A completely different network.
A different network for a different kind of threat. We also see activity in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the VMPFC, which is busy calculating the value of the relationship against the pain of the threat.
So it's weighing the odds. Is this worth fighting for?
And the insula is active too, processing all those gut feelings, that visceral sense of distress.
But you mentioned the one that's most disruptive is the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC. What's its job in this mess?
The ACC is basically the brain's alarm bell. It's the conflict detector. It screams, something is wrong, pay attention now. And when it gets overactive during a jealous episode, it directly correlates with anxiety. And this is the critical part. It tanks your cognitive flexibility.
By cognitive flexibility, you mean the ability to think clearly, to shift gears mentally.
Exactly. When the ACC is screaming, threat, 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 your brain gets stuck. You can't see other possibilities. You can't reevaluate. You can't think rationally. It's like a traffic jam in your head.
And we've seen this in animals, too.
Oh, clearly. Female TD monkeys, when put in jealousy-inducing scenarios, showed seriously impaired reversal learning. They just couldn't adapt their thinking when the rules of a task changed. Their brain was just stuck in that warning loop.
So the brain's own alarm system is blocking any attempt at rational thought. And underneath all this is a really surprising cocktail of chemicals.
It is. A few key players stand out. The first is oxytocin, which is ironic.
The love hormone.
The love hormone, yeah. But it's also deeply implicated in making people more possessive and clingy. That drive to bond can, if it's unbalanced, flip into a drive to control.
That is a wild twist. The hormone for connection becomes the hormone for control.
And then you have vasopressin, which facilitates mate guarding. But maybe the most important piece of the puzzle for the obsessive side is serotonin.
Okay.
Low serotonin is strongly linked to those intrusive obsessive thoughts that just won't stop. It's very similar to the mechanism we see in OCD. The brain just can't find the off switch for the worry.
And while all this is happening, the brain isn't just worried. You're saying it becomes a biased threat detection radar.
That is the perfect analogy. It literally hijacks your perception. Studies show that jealous individuals have an enhanced memory specifically for attractive same-sex faces. They remember the competition better.
So your brain is actively scanning the environment, ignoring all the neutral information, and just building an evidence file to confirm its worst fears.
It's building its own case. And what's more, just inducing a fear of infidelity in someone makes them subconsciously develop more negative attitudes towards other attractive people of the same sex. The monster is actively rigging the jury.
Wow. And if our brains are already this finely tuned, paranoid radar, what on earth happens when we drop that ancient hardware into the biggest threat amplifier ever invented? Social media.
Oh, it's a crisis. The digital world pours gasoline on the fire. One of the biggest mechanisms is persistence.
Meaning the past is never really past?
It's never passed because it's all archived. Old photos, comments from exes, it's all there. This leads to what clinicians are now calling retroactive jealousy, OCD, a genuine obsession with a partner's history before you even met them.
Because the evidence is always just a click away.
It's always there. And then you have the constant visibility and surveillance, location sharing, seeing who likes their photos in real time. It creates this vicious loop. You check, you find something ambiguous, your anxiety spikes, and that spike makes you want to check again.
It's a self-reinforcing cycle.
And the people who suffer most are those with an anxious attachment style.
Which brings us to individual differences. The environment, the chemistry, that all matters. But a lot of this monster really comes from inside us, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's often rooted in our earliest relationship patterns. Anxious attachment, which is defined by a fear of abandonment, is the single strongest predictor of this kind of cognitive and behavioral jealousy.
The constant scanning for signs that you're about to be left.
Exactly. And that inner fear gets projected out onto the partner. People with low self-esteem are also incredibly vulnerable because they often rely on the relationship for their sense of self-worth. So a rival isn't just a threat to the relationship.
It's a threat to their entire identity.
It's their whole sense of stability.
And we have to be really clear here. This can go to a very dark, very dangerous place that's way beyond just feeling insecure.
We have to. It's essential to understand that pathological jealousy is one of the biggest predictors of intimate partner violence. The sources are absolutely consistent on this. Those controlling behaviors, demanding passwords, isolating a partner from friends, they're not acts of love, they are acts of coercion.
And at the far, far end of that spectrum, it's not even about insecurity anymore. It's a complete break from reality.
Right. That's where you find delusional jealousy, also known as Othello syndrome. This is a fixed, false belief that a partner is unfaithful, and it's completely immune to evidence.
No amount of proof to the contrary can shake the belief.
None. The person is 100% convinced, and sometimes this is linked to actual neurological issues like frontal lobe damage. And we also have to mention alcohol.
The amplifier.
The ultimate amplifier. Alcohol myopia narrows your thinking, it ramps up emotion, and it drastically increases the risk of violence in someone who's already prone to maladaptive jealousy.
So when jealousy crosses that line from a normal warning signal to this destructive pathological force,
Yeah.
how do we manage it? How do we tame the monster?
Well, the first-line treatment, the evidence-based approach, is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Okay.
And the whole point of CBT is to get in there and identify and then challenge those cognitive distortions. The catastrophizing, if he talks to her, we're over. The mind reading, all or nothing thinking.
You're basically teaching the rational brain to step in and question the emotional brain's panic signals.
You're building new skills. Things like perspective taking, trying to build empathy. These are crucial for slowing down those intense, automatic, jealous reactions. But for the really obsessive forms, you sometimes need more specialized tools.
Like what? What's an example?
So a technique called exposure and response prevention, or ERP, is incredibly effective. Let's say someone is compulsively checking their partner's social media.
Right.
In therapy, you'd gradually expose them to the trigger. Maybe just having them sit with the thought of their partner liking someone's photo while you actively prevent them from doing the compulsive check.
So they have to sit with the anxiety.
They have to sit with it and learn that it will pass on its own without them performing the ritual. It breaks the cycle. And that kind of intervention is vital when things become obsessive or delusional.
This has been such a deep look at this. We've seen that jealousy is this incredibly dynamic system that can either protect a relationship or just tear it apart. Let's try to boil this down to our 3 key takeaways for you.
Okay. First, jealousy is an adaptive system for relationship retention, but how it shows up is highly contextual. Culture, economics, your specific social environment, they all shape what you fear and how intensely you fear it.
Second takeaway.
Yeah.
That classic sex difference. Men fearing sexual infidelity more, women emotional. It's a real pattern, but it is not universal. It can flip entirely depending on factors like how much fathers are involved in parenting.
And third, pathological jealousy is rooted in real neurochemistry and in our attachment history. Getting a handle on it means you have to actively dismantle those insecure patterns and cognitive distortions, often with professional help like CBT.
You know, when you connect all these dots, it seems so clear that love and jealousy are 2 sides of the same evolutionary coin. They're both designed to keep a pair bond together. Attachment anxiety predicts intense love and intense jealousy.
Which brings us to a final, really provocative question for you to think about. What happens when our technology, I'm talking about hyperrealistic VR, the metaverse, advanced AI companions, what happens when that tech makes the very definition of infidelity completely unrecognizable?
Wow.
Will our ancient evolutionary wiring even know what it's supposed to be protecting anymore?
That is a question to chew on. Thank you for joining us in the Deep Dive Lab. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the green-eyed monster, please be sure to subscribe. We'll see you next time.